In regards to creature design, it's amazing what fears and traits people weave together to make, iconic monsters. Vampires? Well, that's the fear of immortality, cannibalism, and a violent rejection of what is good and pure. Werewolves? That's fear of wild animals, rabies, the loss of one's true self due to violent urges. Gorgons? Those are just furries. Wait, what? Hi, I'm Kit, and today I'm going to be ranting about how cat girls, dog boys, what have you, are more monster designs than they are furry designs. Cause low-key, kinda sick of people looking at, cute little cat girls and being like, okay, furry. And no, this isn't because I like to make, characters with animal ears and tails. No skin in the game. No skin in the game. So without further ado, grab yourself something to drink, something to do, and let's get started on this video. You can't see her. She's off screen. It's Wendy. She's just getting head scritches. Also, fall around these parts, so I'm unfortunately covering them kind of, but I have Pumpkin Cat and I have Witch Doctor Fox. We have been decorating. Very minusculely, but we have been decorating. But because it is fall around these parts, that means I'm thinking a lot more about monsters. Totally natural things. Like if there was a vampire that owned a Fortune 400 company, would they hire a Gen Z assistant to, catch up on what's happening on the socials, modern vernacular and slang? I think they would. But in the same way of thinking about monsters, it reminds me of one time on TikTok, I was called a furry because I was drawing a picture of Kit, who, mind you, is not a furry. She doesn't have animal ears or a tail. She's wearing a mask, and not even a very good mask. But if her wearing a cheap Mardi Gras mask is enough to qualify her as a furry, then what about cat girls or dog boys? Characters that have actual animal parts attached to them. Those are way more intrinsic to the design than a stupid little mask. So, are they furries? And if those are furries, then werewolves have to be furries, right? Because those are just dog boys with extra dog. So they would have to be furries. But everyone calls a werewolf a monster, not a furry. So something's not adding up, methinks. So I'm gonna sit down and tell you why characters like Sue are actually monsters. Because, I don't have any skin in the game. Definitely none, because I am not a furry. Monster Fricker. Okay, so what is a furry? I'm not sure if I've talked about what furries are on this channel before, or if those are real-life conversations, because I'm the most chronically online person most people that I'm friends with IRL know, which I regret. I am no furry expert or furry historian or anything like that. My goal here is to just do some quick clarification, defining a couple points, differences, so we can, explore that later in the video. So, what is a furry? Simply, it is an animal character that has anthropomorphic characteristics. These are typically mammals, however, there are birds and reptiles and a whole bunch of mythological creatures. However, furry is the generally accepted term for people who like to get in mascot costumes and go meet up at conventions and have a character that is the animal represent them online. It's kind of like how mankind refers to men, women, children, and not just adult males. Now, furries belong to the furry fandom, and that's a little bit more complex, because when you think fandom, you're typically thinking fans around a central piece of media, such as the My Hero Academia fandom, the Homestuck fandom. Why did I list those two? I don't know. But the furry fandom doesn't really have that central piece of media, or at least it doesn't in the modern day. It might have had it at one point. It's more of a giant shared interest group. The general furry fandom can be broken down into different subgroups like content creators, comic makers, artists, fursuit makers. However, things like furry conventions typically don't have that central focus. The central focus is the interest of having an anthropomorphic character. And they're more focused on different regions, which is why a lot of their names and titles will shift based on different regions. It's not just Furry Convention Tampa, Florida. It's not just Furry Convention Seattle, how you would do Comic-Con, say, which is Comic-Con San Diego, Comic-Con Seattle, Comic-Con Chicago. Is that where the other one is? They will have names that change based on the region. And for any furry sound off in my comments, I know not all these conventions are made equal. Trust me, I get that. I watched the videos that went into why Rainforest existed. I get different organizers will focus on different things, enforce different rules, have different policies. I know that there are some that are all ages, some that are 18 plus, yada, yada, yada. I'm just saying, in general, these conventions are a lot more open to just people who have the interest versus a very specific niche of the interest or specific fans of specific media in the interest. Now, why would someone want to be a furry? For sexual degeneracy? I mean, like, probably for some. I've been on the internet long enough to know that that can be applied to almost anything, and I wish I didn't know that. Wish I could have peace of mind. But no, that is not the only reason why someone would want to do that. Some people do it as a form of self-expression or escapism from their regular lives, no kink included. Because the furry fandom, for better or for worse, is so extremely broad that technically you can be accepted by it by any of the subgroups of part of it. Sure, maybe not every furry is going to be super hyped that you make blatantly inflammatory politic cringe videos on your YouTube starring your fursona, but there's also probably an equal amount that do want that. That's how you have Nazi furries and then like far left furries. That's kind of why all of the furry political drama has been really funny to look at on Twitter. It's like, your fandom's so big. Of course there's someone who's not going to agree with you on every point, sweet pea. Also, because most furries will be wearing a fursuit, you can really stretch who you are for that escapism aspect. Like, yeah, if I want to go and cosplay a child from Genshin, I can really only go so far because I'm not a tall man with rippling muscles. And there's really only so many accessories that I can do to try and mimic those features that I don't naturally have. However, if I'm going to wear a head-to-toe costume that already needs inner structure that I can then add additional padding to, I could probably do a more convincing Von Lycan. I mean, Fursuit can just start padding the heck out of that thing to make me look way stronger than I am. And all that is to say, it's easier to change and fake features that you wish you could change about yourself that maybe you can't due to a disability, not enough time, or maybe you just don't have the right body composition for it. Like, sure, I'm never gonna be him, but with a skilled enough fursuit artist, I can convey basically everything I love about that character, but put it in a hyena packaging, and then be like, no guys, dat me. How do I tell what a furry is? Try this quick and easy list. Number 1, is the character a animal? Number 2, does that animal have human traits? Number 3, do those traits extend to the proportion and movement of said character? If you answered yes to all of these, the character may qualify as a furry character. So let's play a little game and kind of test this. I like to call this game, is it a furry or is it an animal character in animated media? Nick Wilde from Zootopia, I would say that is a furry design. Thumper from Bambi, that is just an animal design. Todd from Fox and the Hound, I'd say once again another animal design. Johnny from Sing, I'd say this is a bit more furry design. Not the furriest, but a little bit more human characteristics. Kyubey from Madoka Magica. Trick question, neither. Space Satan. So, if a furry is just an animal given human traits, then what's a monster? Because, like, there's a lot of monsters that are humans just with animal features. Or in the case of manticores, they're like 3 animals hot glued together. And monsters is a pretty vague term. It has changed throughout human history, but it's often classified as something you're going to be scared of. Historically, monsters are allegorical and cautionary tales. The villains of stories you tell children to keep them away from the big bad and scary. Remember to behave, or else your sins will attract a demon who's going to take you from home and harm you. Now, is there really a monster that's going to do that? Probably not. But there are really bad humans out there who want to take out their anger on people weaker than them. So if they can claim the reason they harmed a child was because the child was doing something bad, the warning is still needed to be given. Don't go into the woods at night lest you stumble into a fae ring and you'll be kidnapped by the fairy and trapped in their realm forever. Or more likely, if you stumble in the woods at night, you're not going to find your way home. You'll get lost, eaten by wild animals, or taken away by thieves and bandits. A monster is a digestible way to dress up the very real dangers in a way that sticks with children. I know a bear's gonna attack me, it's a wild animal, but as a kid, it's hard to understand why a human would attack me. They're humans, humans don't do that, especially if I haven't done anything wrong to provoke it. There's always a lot of talk about protecting kids, and what type of media needs to be censored for their betterment. And I think monsters is a way that older cultures would do that. I don't think it's really good for a kid to hear about cannibalistic tribes, starvation due to bad harvest, freezing to death, how the actions of one of your neighbors could lead to everyone in the town dying. But if we take all those aspects and make them into a creature who is eternally hungry and brings with it freezing temperatures, and the desire to destroy civilization, influencing loved ones to do wrong and bring about that destruction, not only does this still communicate the warnings we need to give to the children, but is memorizable and digestible for younger audiences because it's a genuinely interesting story. A monster's not just something that's gonna attack you. I mean, like, it will, but it's typically more than that. A bear isn't a monster, it's a beast. A hurricane is not a monster, It's a natural disaster. A swamp is not a monster. It is an ecosystem. Now, while all of these things can be dangerous and harmful to humans, and they are things we should be aware of, they're not monsters. We've never classified any of them as that. That's because they can't be avoided in the same way. There's no moral lesson that's going to prevent me from getting hurt by any of those. We can't perform a ritual to appease a tornado for it to stop its rampage. We can't defeat a swamp. And a bear's a bear. It doesn't really have a goal other than to live and reproduce. Now, you can make any of these things into monsters, and that's often by adding a story or lesson to them. Otherwise, they're just dangerous things. A monster is more often made by its story than its appearance. Well, it used to be, at least. As time went on, humans stopped having the same issues we used to have. Winter isn't all that scary anymore because we have warm clothing, indoor heating, and grocery stores where we can get fresh and frozen food to cook at home. Thanks to hospitalization and medication, along with reporting of sick animals on the prowl in human-populated areas, illnesses like rabies are caught faster and eliminated before they can spread to a dangerous degree. Slowly, these allegorical beasts lost their importance. We lost the reason to be scared of them, but these stories were important to us. These stories and legends were spread for generations. The Cyclops hasn't survived since the time of Odysseus, just to be killed because we're enlightened. These are really good stories, but we've grown out of the fears. So, what are we supposed to do? Well, we do what everyone's always done since the beginning of time. We remix. The traditional stories aren't really doing it for us anymore. Yeah, Rabid Wolfman might be scary to villagers back in the 1800s, but modern guns are way stronger and way faster than what they had been. I can probably take it. And if not, go to some oncoming traffic and let it play deer. But the idea that every month, someone you know and love could turn into a monster, with it to be reverted with the sunrise, and this monster is shown to be truly indestructible? Okay, that's kind of cool. And it also had stakes. This is your friend. Even if you physically could kill them, would you want to? Or would you risk trying to restrain them in their absolutely crazed state? And what about the danger that's going to bring to literally everyone else who did not sign up for this? I can get behind this story. It's getting really cool. Honestly, that's a really cool take on werewolves. And this is the first revamp of classic horror creatures we get with horror movies. Reimagining of classic horror stories like Frankenstein, Wolfman, Dracula, adding and changing a couple little things to make it more compelling to watch. Along with this, we introduced some new monsters with more modern warnings. Aliens that warn us about the Red Scare and how people you know might actually be wolves in sheep's clothing looking to take over your nation. Swamp monsters that are born of pollution with a goal to destroy industry and humans that created it. Kaijus, the result of toxic waste, creating monsters of unbelievable proportion and power with the goal to wipe out everything. These movies were really exciting. They got your blood pumping, sitting on the edge of your seat. Sure, maybe I'm not really getting the deeper meaning to some of the monsters, but I mean, who cares? This is cool. This is entertainment. I don't need to care. Plus, I mean, what am I going to do about those warnings? They're not really for me. Yeah, pollution's bad, but I'm not dumping toxic waste into ponds, so sue me. These movies were really popular with younger audiences as well, specifically teenagers. And maybe that's just because they provided the perfect excuse to snuggle up to your boo just because it's so scary and please hold me, ooh. Monsters were becoming less realistic dangers and more movie stars. We know Frankenstein's monster isn't real. We can all see the makeup. However, he does have a very iconic look, and he is coming from a more mature movie, but the design's not so overly horrific that a child couldn't see the monster. It would make for a pretty good Halloween costume, honestly. And you know how kids always want to emulate their older siblings or cool adults? This means that it's only a matter of time before kids start dressing up as these classic monsters, even if they're not familiar with the stories they originally came from. Soon enough, these monsters became staple costumes, often separated from their stories and movies of origin. More decorations and party supplies started featuring cartoon mummies and witches. There's children's media that was made featuring exaggerated and silly monsters like Hocus Pocus, or even making the monsters good guys like Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, or Halloween Town. Monsters were treated more like actual characters that just happened to look different. They weren't inherently evil just because they're a witch, vampire, or boogeyman. Sometimes their views were a little skewed, like Jack Skellington not getting that you don't want scary things during Christmas time, but not all monsters were oogie boogies. Enough with the references for now. I'm sorry, I love kid Halloween movies. Be thankful that I have not mentioned Scary Godmother because That was my childhood. All that is to say that monsters have become child-friendly. These ancient beasts were introduced to children without introducing them to the horror that's going to give them nightmares for weeks in most cases. Beetlejuice. Don't look under the bed. Certain goosebumps. Oh, sorry about that. Dry throat. Let me get a sip of water. Monsters, at least of this nature, have become more a fantasy race equivalent to elves or dwarves than the warnings they were historically. So it's no surprise that eventually we got a line of toys and accompanying show of monster-based fashion dolls. And with this, we get a further remix on monster takes. Yeah, they're monsters, but like, they're just teens. Claudine is always in her wolf form, however, she's not mindless like a wolf. She is aware in the way a human is. Frankenstein can fall apart and control her missing limbs to a degree, but she just wants to fit in at her new school, guys. All these monsters are affected by their monster status, but they are not defined by their monster status. Around this time, we also see more people playing online with twists on these classic monsters. Like, if werewolves were real, and they got domesticated over time, would they turn into like Pomeranians? Oh no, you're a vampire? Well, it's pretty sunny today, so I guess grab your parasol and your SPF 1000 and you're good to go. Sorry, still can't eat garlic bread. No workaround there yet. Heck, at some points, monsters became hot for some reason. My source for that would be Monster Prom and Everyday Life with Monster Girls, so don't at me if you're saying monsters never became hot. More and more of these monster traits were slimmed down and smoothed out to become attractive and in some cases inviting instead of the red flags they originally were. And with their warmer, friendlier personalities and their silly monster quirks, they stopped being scary. They feel domesticated in a way. The stories that warned of dangers long lost to us has evolved like a house cat or a Labrador. They're safe. Of course, there is the other route monster movies went where they got really scary with slasher films or the Alien franchise, movies that got a lot of gore and targeted attacks, but like, guys, those weren't for kids, and thus they didn't get toned down, so I am not going to touch on that. And now we're on to cat girls and dog boys and old man Yowie Dragon Sweat. You get the idea. What are they? The fact that I'm describing them as gender animal and the fact that a lot of these characters are original characters, if not self-insert characters, may make you believe that they are furries. Human characters with animal characteristics is just a reverse of an animal that has been anthropomorphized. But I'm here to say you're dead wrong. There is a huge difference between a cat girl and a girl cat. When I say bunny girl, you know I'm not talking Horror from Beastars, even if she is both a bunny and a girl. Similarly, if I say anther bunny, you're not gonna think Playboy bunny girl, but her ears are attached. Yes, there are furry designs and hybrid designs that are a little bit more of a gradiated scale than clear black and white. However, that doesn't mean that there is no difference whatsoever. It's like when you say apples and oranges and that one nerd says, actually, they're both fruits and grow on trees, and they served sliced children as a hydrating snack. It's like, yeah, you can make similarities. There are shades of gray, but overall, you're not gonna look at an orange and say, apple! But overall, you can tell there's a very clear difference between a sexy woman with fox traits and a fox with sexy woman traits. Okay, so they're not furries. So like, what are they? Did you skip the entire video up until this point? They're monsters. Specifically, they are modern day monsters. They're the ones we've taken and tamed and shaped to be appealing to us. Yeah, maybe down your lineage you had an ancestor who was terrifying, and maybe they were even offered sacrifice in some cases. But modern day you is just a cute little soft sweetie baby who just maybe has a little bit of an attitude. Okay, but monsters are scary. They kill people. And not some coochie woochie ooh snuggle bell like wolves. Kind of like man's best friend's ancestors who were taken care of and selectively bred to better suit humanity. Whatever. Monsters aren't pure animals. Humans can't breed vampires because vampires have free will, like cats, who have changed not to the degree of dogs, but are good to humans because we provide a constant source of food and shelter with not a lot of effort on the cat's parts. You can't tame something mindless like a zombie. Little known thing known as population control and further manipulation through additional vaccination. Kind of like how humans made rabies rare. AKA, I have plenty of enough hubris in the modern day humanity to believe that, in some cases, monsters were real, we could tame them. And the fact that a majority is just human mythos and reality, yeah, we can rewrite those to definitely fit more modern times. Kit, why do they have to be monsters? Why can't they just be their own thing? We both know why they can't be their own thing. 12-year-olds are smooth-brained. The wrinkles start forming at age 13. Would it not be in a monster's brand to be more human than it would be for a furry to be more human? I know monsters aren't real, but some of the scariest things are just human adjacent. A mountain lion's cry is just off of a woman's cry of pain. So if you hear a woman screaming in a region where mountain lions might live, it might be safer to not investigate. Faces that are edited to be perfect, mirrored and symmetrical, make warning bells go off in our head. They're very uncanny valley. So if something hunts humans, would the ones that are able to succeed and procreate not be the ones that have surpassed the uncanny valley and moved more into the appealing? I know monsters aren't real, but why would a furry, something that serves as an escape to some people or a manifestation of a life that they want to mimic humanity? Something unchanging, something bound in reality, something a lot of people have to try to romanticize. It doesn't make sense. And what about the monsters that are already on the same level as catgirls? Is Medusa a furry? Minotaurs? Satyrs, mermaids, harpies, list goes on. These are all human bases with animal features, or even being half animal in some cases. And these are classical monsters or beasts that date back to ancient Greece. I'd argue that this is way closer to a cat girl than a cat girl is to an anthro cat. Most cat girls are just normal human girls with ears, tail, slit eye, fang, and maybe little cat paw feet and some variation of toe beans. But even if you do go to the more extreme hybrid type drawings where they have the lower half of animals, curved haunches, fur coat and all, having hands more based on animal paws than human hands and the fluff on the chest, I'd still argue this is more in the realm of satyr than it is a furry. Personally, I think a good rule of thumb on the border of monster and furry would be 1, is it covered in fur? And I mean head to toe, arm, leg, everything. 2, upon seeing it, can you immediately identify that it is, in fact, an animal? Now, what do I mean by that? Let's look at Claudine, or, oh gosh, what's her name? I'm gonna call her Toralei, from Monster High. Both of these girls are covered in fur to my knowledge, meaning it does mean point 1. However, I don't think it's super clear that they are animals, at least in the case of Claudine. Yes, she is covered in a light dusting of fur, and she does have wolf ears, but that's about it. Her ears aren't even affixed to the side of her head like a true wolf's would be, making it look more like an accessory she put on than something attached to her skull. She has no semblance of a tail, and her claws and fangs aren't more noticeable than the other characters. She doesn't stand out as looking different or non-normal. Torel does read a little bit more of a cat, considering she does have cat ears and a tail along with patterned fur. However, once again, she's not overtly standing out from other monsters the way a furry would. They're more like yokai, specifically a bakoneko or a kitsune taking a human form, where they retain a couple animal features, the amount of which depends on which story you're reading, but overall, they pass as humans. Or, in their case, they're passing as a monster teen instead of a furry, I guess. At least in the modern day, I feel like a big amount of these characters are used for things like VTubers, in which case a lot of the lore is usually I was transformed from an animal to a streamer, or I'm a retired all-powerful being. Not just, this is my sona, my escapism, that's it. They have a story to explain why they are the way they are, even if it's really quick and short. So, are catgirls furries, or are catgirls monsters? I've laid out my argument on the table, but in the end, it's up for you to decide on your opinion. Hopefully, I've given you a couple points to think about and consider when you classify these two different groups. Because remember, the reason why words exist is to help clarify and classify in people's minds what information you're giving them, which is why definitions and histories are brought up on videos like these, just to give you a little bit more of a clear perspective. Or maybe I'm just ranting to rant. Anyways, hope you had fun. Thanks for listening. Love ya. See you later. Bye! Okay, video is over, but if you do want to see more from me, consider hitting subscribe so you stay up to date with my uploads. I do want to upload more weekly videos, and I've been working on stockpiling some, so got a couple more on the way, I hope. Also hit the like button if you like this, because I'm really insecure. Okay, love you. See you later. Bye!